Hello YouTube, this is Asatsu5 and today I'm reviewing Paul Meets Muhammad, a Christian and a Muslim debate on the resurrection. This is by Michael Licona. And Michael Licona is one of the foremost scholars when it comes to the historical Jesus and his death and resurrection. He wrote the book on it. He wrote a very big book on it. And this is probably the smallest book you're going to get on the subject by him or anybody. This is a cool book. I don't know what to call it. It's kind of nonfiction, but it's based in like fiction. It's kind of fiction, but it's based in nonfiction. The content, the historical facts are real. But just to tell you the setup of this debate, these scientists create this artificial intelligence machine, and they can type in or plug in a bunch of data, and then depending on who's talking, they can have almost a resurrected body of either Paul or Muhammad. The machine artificially thinks like Muhammad or like Paul, and they use holograms of what they think Paul or Muhammad looked like, and they debate each other. This machine is working both of them, and basically they plugged in all the relevant information for Paul, they plugged in all the relevant information for Muhammad, and they debate. And this is like the World Series or World Cup. This is such a highly anticipated event in this book. They have like thousands of Muslims and Christians in the same building wanting to watch this debate of Paul versus Muhammad. And for those of you who don't know, most Muslims don't have a high opinion of Paul. And as you know, most Christians don't have a high opinion of Muhammad. Anyways, they have these holographs with these artificial intelligent machines debating each other, and you're seeing it as a hologram. And there's a moderator. Like with most debates, who's an actual person, and this moderator can talk to Paul or Muhammad, and ask them a question or discipline them for not debating correctly, and the holograms respond appropriately. Like I said, this is kind of science fiction, but the historical facts are true. So that's kind of the background of this book. And it raises a question that I would like to ask any of my Muslim viewers their opinion on this at the end of the review. But basically, Paul gives an opening statement, and he says we have facts like the empty tomb, the actual eyewitnesses that saw Jesus walking around when he came back to life. You have historical sources writing about Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection that were at times hostile to Christians and people who are not a part of the church writing about it. He gives a lot of historical evidence and a lot of philosophical evidence about Jesus being publicly tortured and killed, and like how bad crucifixion was, how harsh it was, and how very few people, no one survived a full Roman crucifixion. One guy survived, but that's because the Romans intervened so they can prolong it a little bit longer. But they talk a lot about the historical events that surrounded Jesus' death. And then you got Muhammad over here who says, the Quran refutes these A, B, C, and D reasons that you've given. And Muhammad gives his thoughts on the subject. And basically he says, well, since the Quran says this, and I know the Quran's from God, then I have no reason to believe what you're saying. And if you look hard enough in the Quran, they refute what you're saying. And Paul is saying, no, I have all these writers from all over the area, Greek, Aramaic, whatever, and hostile, non-hostile. Have a lot of people writing about Jesus during this time. There was no Jew that was written about more in the first century than Jesus. But he quotes some of his sources, and he quotes some of the philosophical ideals, and then they have a kind of a question answer Q&A. They have a discussion where they rebuttal each other, and so it's very much a transcript of a fictitious debate between Paul and Muhammad, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I am not a good reader. I'm extremely dyslexic and ADHD, so reading is not easy for me. That's why I usually stick to audiobooks, but they didn't have this in audiobooks. That was the discussion page, and so it was really cool. Also, something to mention, my man Nabil Qureshi, he's in the acknowledgments. Before he converted to Christianity, he was a Muslim. He read the manuscript to this book and gave a Islamic point of view of how Muhammad would talk and how Muhammad would think, and kind of answered any questions to Michael Kona about Islam if he was a little bit unsure of the Muslim view. So not only did Nabil Qureshi read this, David Wood read this, Marie Wood, David's wife. David's an expert in Islam, unintentionally. For those of you who don't know, in Seeking Allah Finding Jesus, David Wood was Nabil Qureshi's friend, and the only reason he learned about Islam was to refute Nabil, and they became friends on that basis of trying to convert each other. And so it's pretty cool to have those people putting their input into this book and giving some of their expertise. And the other cool thing is, like, there was no point in this book where it says Paul won, therefore Christianity is true, or Muhammad won, therefore Islam is true. Let's see if I can find it. That's the notes area. By the way, this is written by a Christian. But the moderator gives a closing statement, and he summarizes the evidence. And he says, hey, don't let your biases, get in the way of learning the truth. This is this is that. You have to make the decision. So it's not being necessarily given to you who won. And so that's kind of cool. You can make up your own mind. And it's also interesting that the moderator kind of was more harsh towards Paul than he was to Muhammad. And they explain why in the book, but I also know there was some secondary reasons for that, and that was a vehicle to expose more information. But it's a really cool book. I really enjoyed it. I don't know how much it cost off the top of my head. It's not too expensive. It's probably the coolest sci-fi book I've ever read. And the only other sci-fi book that I ever read was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which was a good book as well. But I got a question for any Muslims watching this review. I know in Islam that you're not supposed to have images of prophets. And so that's why, in France they had those terrorist attacks on... what's that called? There was a satirical magazine that posted a photo or a cartoon of Muhammad. You had several other terrorist attacks associated with cartoons of Muhammad. Comedy Central removed a South Park episode because it had an image of Muhammad. And so, and I think it's not just prophets. I think that in Islam they don't like images in general, but I don't know if that's completely true. But I know they don't like images of prophets and of Allah. So my question to you is, would it be haram or forbidden or wrong to go see a holograph of Muhammad, or how people think Muhammad would look. Because in this book, they have a hologram of Paul and they have a hologram of Muhammad, the prophet of Islam. And in the book, the Muslims were just amazed that they were seeing Muhammad. You know, that no one's seen Muhammad for about 14,000 years, and here was this man with all the knowledge that Muhammad would have, supposedly, and he's walking around talking and debating a Christian. Would a Muslim have a problem with a hologram of Muhammad? I'm genuinely curious and would like to know. Would that be considered a photo or an image that would be forbidden in Islam? So that's my question. So I'd really like to know that. But like I said, also it has, I use unessential playing cards as my bookmarks. But they also have reviews from different scholars. In fact, I think it was it's not in this book, but I think it was either Ravi Zacharias or William Lane Craig said that they made Muhammad sound like a very highly educated intellectual, as opposed to a 7th century dude. But they have reviews from other scholars, and they have a foreword by Lee Strobel right here. Also worth mentioning, I didn't read the notes because that would have to be something that I've read this while at work, and I read this during my convention trip, and these notes would be something that I'd have to look up individually to get the full information. These are just references. Hey, look this up if you want to learn about Josephus or whatever. And they have some different scriptures that you can reference. So these are the notes that correspond with different parts of the debate. Here's the thing about Mike Licona. Mike Licona, PhD, CAND. I don't know what CAND is. CAND. University of Pretoria, is director of apologetics and evangelism of North American Mission Board of South Baptist Convention. He frequently speaks at churches, parachurch groups, and university audience across the country. He is also co-author of the award-winning Case for the Resurrection of Jesus. But yeah, there was the book. I hope that you would pick it up and read it if you're interested. I know that not only did I read this to learn about non-biblical sources for Jesus, but I also wanted to learn more about the Muslim perception of the crucifixion and why they believe what they believe, because they don't believe that Jesus was crucified. And some of them believe, because of the overwhelming evidence for his crucifixion, they believe he was crucified but not killed. So I wanted to learn more about their point of view and get kind of in their head and stuff and see what they believed. So this was a very interesting book for me. That's it. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I hope you read the book. I'm a Satsu 5, and I'm out.